welcome. My name is Katie Burke. I am your host and the founder of the Modern Priestess Movement. And today I am so honored to introduce a conversation with Lorie Ladd, or otherwise known as Laurie of Lemuria. Lorie communicates with the beings inside of Telos, which is a fifth dimensional community. And her service here is to help us with this dimensional change and our dimensional awakening. So we go into quite a lot of very interesting topics today. And I am really looking forward to hearing what you think about today's conversation. You can find me on Instagram at katieburke.co and leave a message under our photo with Lorie about today's episode and let me know what you think. I think it's going to be a very eye-opening experience. So without further ado, here's Lorie. All right, here we go. I'm here with Lorie Ladd for our Modern Priestess Movement conversation, and I can tell we're both buzzing. We're both just like, we're really ready to go. So I'm really excited about this conversation, and right before I hit the record button, Lorie's like, I feel like I've known you forever. I'm like, I know! It just feels like this remembering coming together. So how did your remembering begin?
I actually remember, well, when I was around 13 is when I started remembering.
Okay.
And I knew there was an ascension coming, but back then it was like we all thought it was like you were sending off, like you're going to end up, like something bad was going to happen to the planet and everyone was going to leave.
I still think there's some people who do think that's what's going on.
Really?
Well, okay, so I will tell you. So I'm in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a part of the country where there's a lot of confusion about what Ascension is. So I'm glad you brought that. That's a question I have for later. So I do want to make sure that you help us understand what really is going on, because I do think that there still might be some fear and confusion around that. So I do want to get to that later.
Well, that's good to know, because back in the day, this was like, I'm 41, so 13, I don't know, 1980 something. That's what we were taught. I mean, all the spiritual leaders, were taught this. And there were some that sort of knew that you were going to be doing it in your body, but most of it was you were going to be separating. But anyway, so for the last 30 years, I just kind of went in and out of knowing what was happening and what I'm supposed to do, but not completely opening my arms to like, let's go do it.
Yeah.
And I had an eating disorder, I had drugs, I had alcohol, I had men, I had, you name it. I just was like, give it to me so I didn't have to deal with the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was last year, I went to Kaira's Ascension thing, like almost a year ago to this day. She did this like awesome water ceremony on the mountain. And I said to myself, my higher self was like, this is it, Laura, you're doing it. There's no going back. You're doing it. You're jumping in. And so I went. Yeah. She's so amazing, right? Yeah. So I went in and I was like,
mentored with her. I don't know if I've ever told you that. But I also have mentored. Okay, I just wanted to, so she's very special to me too. Yeah, wonderful.
It's like that remembrance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Like, she just shines that light on you of like, don't forget who you are. Don't forget why you're here.
Yeah.
So I went and I knew this was gonna be it, and I haven't looked back since, and I just have been charging forward. But I've always known that what I'm doing right now is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it that you're doing now? Tell us about where your passion and what is the medicine that you have to serve?
So it's so interesting, because when I was 13, I always knew that I was going to be assisting people in their ascension, so to speak, like bridging that gap between being in the third dimension and then moving into the fifth, sixth, seventh dimension, sort of where we're moving to. And I thought it was basically, literally, I thought I was going to be like assisting people onto like spaceships. Like, here you go, we're leaving, we're ascending, see you. Like, that's what I thought, like at 13. Like, oh my God, that's so cool. But what I've realized is I channel the individuals that are inside Telos, which is a city inside Mount Shasta, and it's a multidimensional city of light. And I am basically sharing their information. So they've been living this life that we're moving towards. So their world inside that mountain is our world that we're moving to, the new earth. And so it's kind of like, they're like, hey guys, we're doing it right now. We have so much to share with you, so much to give you, so much information on what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, how we live in this 5D world. We want to help you. And so my purpose is to share that information with everyone, and because we're all feeling it, that back and forth of like, I'm in this sort of fifth dimensional space, and then I'm back into this third dimensional space. And there's this back and forth that's very confusing. It's like, you'll feel really connected and really like centered, and like things are flowing and you're connected to higher self, and like, things are just sort of effortless. And then the next day you're like, screw this, like things are tough. I don't trust. I'm not, you just kind of go back and forth into that space. Yeah. Totally normal. That's the shift that we're dealing with. Yeah. And I'm here to like help people understand what this is all about and where we're going. And it's kind of crazy. Like when I was working with Kaya, she's like, Laurie of Lemuria. And I'm like, what?
Yes.
She's like, Laurie of Lemuria. I'm like, no, that's not the name. I'm not doing, that's ridiculous. Laurie of Lemuria? Seriously? Like, no. And she's like, okay, we'll see.
Right. And it's like, well, take it or not.
What's he going to do? It's like, Adam's like, yeah, Laurie of Lemuria. And I'm like, so I sat with that for a couple months and finally was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly what you mean. And I think that there's other women in the call who are like, oh, I've had this moment where it's just like, really? Really? That's what, but you just it, and then you realize like, that is me. That is me. So they're just waiting to step into it. The sooner you do it, the easier it's going to get. Yep.
Because it's not going to go anywhere.
No.
It's going to be back there like, right
no,
here.
And actually, the more you resist it, I have found like the sicker you get. When you have something so specific like that that's been gifted to you, that knowing, and then you refuse it, then you really do start. There's some suffering that starts to take place.
Yeah, and you know what I've noticed with myself and with some of my girlfriends that are going through this? It's like there is a fear for us to step into our beautiful light. There's a fear within us of how powerful and amazing and magnificent we are. Yeah. Yeah. That we it's like you would think that we'd be like, yes, I'm going.
Right.
But there's a part of us that's like, ooh, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Like what does that entail of me? What do I have to give up? What do I have to sacrifice? Or, there's these fears that pop up of what that means to actually fully step into why you are here, like surrendering completely, all that trust, all of that knowingness that's within you of like, this is it. Yeah. This is why you came here. And you're going to be fully 100% taken care of no matter what. Yeah. And to live in that trust, of knowing that once you're fully, completely surrendering to why you're here, they will not let you fail and they will not let you suffer. Financially, emotionally, mentally, it will not happen. But we live in that world. We've been programmed to believe that there is suffering and there is lack and this is what's supposed to happen. I'm not, Yeah. And that's part of moving into that 5D world, right? Like, it is effortless. It is effortless.
Yeah. I find myself wanting to make it more complicated than that. right? And it is that simple. And when I surrender to this simple elegance of, I can't think of a better word than it's simple, not easy.
Yes.
Simple, but not easy. So it's a very simple concept, but it takes you have to look at it from so many different angles, I think, until you finally realize the simplicity and the beauty of how pure and simple it is. But yeah, it takes us, I think, a lot of lifetimes, a lot of different perspectives to really see that truth. Yeah.
It's like effortless, but you have to, like I was telling a girlfriend a couple days ago, it's effortless. It's going to just happen. You know, your path, your offerings, it's all going to happen, but you have to move.
You have to
take the steps. You have to do what you think you're supposed to do. Like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to go on Instagram today, you know, or I guess I'm supposed to like post whatever it is. Like, you have to take the steps. Like, oh, this is my next offering that I'm giving. And whether that's actually the offering you're going to give or not, you won't know until you start taking those steps.
Yeah, you won't know until you know.
Yeah,
that's what my girlfriend keeps reminding. She's like, well, you're not going to know until you know. Yeah. Wow. Okay, wow. So much there that I want to dig into. But actually, at first, before we kind of get even more into some of these topics, I want to know a little bit more about you personally. Like, what are you? How do you find your joy and your playfulness and that like pure innocence? How do you keep that burning?
Well, it's a good question, because I've noticed that in the last couple months I've been so focused on Laurie of Lemuria and I'm so like, it's like I haven't allowed myself to have a lot of joy in my life right now, because it's like, no, Laurie, talking about it being effortless, I'm like, nope, I gotta do this. It's like I've just been really heads down. I've been hard on myself, hard on myself the last couple months. And it's like, if I'm not doing something towards my company or my business, then it's going to fail. Mm-hmm. And so the last couple of weeks, I've actually just been, I went up to Mount Shasta a couple of weeks ago, and I completely surrendered. I was like, I'm done. I give everything over. And I was so happy, because I was out hiking and I was out doing the things I love. And it's like, you don't have to stop your life. I'm talking about to me. I don't have to stop my life and just do this work that I'm supposed to be doing. And, I have to find that joy. I have to find that part of myself that still loves to laugh and all of that I'm, it's not supposed to be so serious, Yeah. And I've been in this zone of like, oh, it's super serious, and I have to do my work, and I have to create these things. And it's like, get your ass out there, go play in the woods, go in the lakes, go, find that balance. Like, that balance is so important. Yeah. And that's been hard for me to find.
I hear that.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? It's not separate. That's what's been, so the work that you're talking about, of like the head down work and the play, that's what's hard for me, for my mind to be okay with, is that the play and the work, like the play and the joy and the self-care and the things that I need for me, and then, the katieburke.co, the Modern Priestess movement, it's the same thing. They're not separate things. It all has to be the same thing, or I do that too. I swing back and forth from like these crazy work days, and then, okay, I need to completely detach from that work, and right. And then do something else. And what I'm just this week, this is actually, and this I have to give credit to my friend Jackie, who was doing some energy work on me, and she like totally she helped this click in my head where it was like, no, this is all just your life now. It's not like you clock in and like, this is like you don't get to separate the two. They have to come together.
Right.
Oh
my God, yeah, that just really hit me.
Yeah, it's not separate. It's like it all has to be that those two things have to fuse together for us to be able to sustain this amount of energy to keep helping people with their ascension process is quite a big what do I want to say, like dharma. So anyways, yeah, that's just been like as of Monday. I mean, it was like that came through really clear. Like, no, they're not different. And this, I just posted about this. Like, so I have a daughter. She's 18 months old. And it's like she's part of the modern priestess movement too. They're all, like all of this in your life, all of these souls, they're all part of it. So utilize every tool and person that you have to bring it all together into one thing. So
it's like a different paradigm as well. Like we were talking about,
totally.
It's no longer this and then this. It's no longer I'm going to work and then I'm going to take a time out and go and do that.
Right.
It's all the same.
It's all the same because us going out and playing
of
and
course
feeling.
It is.
Yeah, it's all the same. Right? And so that has been something hard to, again, simple, not easy. Like so simple to be like, oh yeah, it is. It's all this, like me going out and sitting in my yard and just like being alone and quiet and away from all the things in the house that are like beeping and buzzing and all that stuff. That's part of my job. My job. It's, if we want to call it that. So it's been, I'm glad that we got to speak to that.
Well, and then really quickly, you also think about when you get some deep downloads, it's when you're not working.
Absolutely.
It's when you're playing. It's when you're hiking. It's when you're just sitting in your yard. All of a sudden you're like, oh, the download comes in. You're like, oh, Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my experience.
So awesome.
Well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's all the same. It's all the same. Okay. Isn't that fun?
Yeah. I'm thinking like this and that, because I'm having to do that. I'm having to merge that together and just be like, it all just is.
Yeah.
It's all just.
And we are worthy of doing that.
Yes.
We are worthy of doing that. Yeah, we do. We do.
Yeah. What I find, back to the joy that I love being out. I love hiking. I love being out and like where no one is, just out in the middle of like the wilderness. So finding more of that in my life is what I'm trying to do.
Great. And do you live near or on Mount I can never say it. Shasta?
Yeah. No, but my guides told me I have to move there. I'm in Santa Fe.
Okay, so you're on your way. I've never been, and actually this winter is going to be my first trip to California since I was like 4. Yeah, so I'm hoping in that I can somehow, like, I'm not sure how, but like make my way. Even though it's going to be winter, I don't care. Yeah, so
you have to go. The energy has shifted on that mountain since I would say around June. Something has shifted in that area, and it's like it's energy I've never felt before in my life. I'm like, what has happened? Oh my God!
What do you think that is?
I think there's a couple things. I just think it's the energy on the planet, right? Yeah. Really clearing up and really bringing in a higher frequency on the planet. And then there's this device that's been created that's in Mount Shasta now, and it's a Christ consciousness device, and there's none other on the planet right now, but the planet itself has a Christ consciousness grid. And then the galaxy around it has a Christ consciousness grid, right? So there's a Christ consciousness grid physically on Mount Shasta now, and I think I'm getting goosebumps as I talk about it. I think that has shifted and sort of cleaned up a lot of that energy around there, and just really brought in some strong, can't even say what it is.
Yeah.
Just like,
I'm going to make a note to put, because you posted a photo of it, I saw.
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to include that photo in these notes. So can you tell us how do I want to phrase this? Well, okay, what does the Christ consciousness mean to you?
So it's our collective remembrance of who we are. So when we separated from Source, it's like a piece of bread was cut off, right? And everybody gets their own little piece, but we're all that same piece, right? And so within our heart is that spark, that divine light. And the Christ consciousness is the collective consciousness that sort of connects us all together. And we have our own individual Christ consciousness, right? That connects us from our heart straight to our higher self, straight up to the I am presence, straight up to Source, right? So there's that individual Christ consciousness that connects us to who we are individually. And there is the collective Christ consciousness that is which is what you're doing. Bringing us all together is a mini sort of Christ consciousness, and the more we remember our Christ consciousness individually and together, the more of us are together doing that, the more we're like, oh my God, that's right.
Right, how powerful it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this Christ consciousness device is like an elevator ride straight to like, you just really bring in more of that. You bring in more of your higher self. You bring in more of your Christ, the consciousness of Christ and yourself and the planet. You remember your connection to your I am presence, which is the direct highway straight to Source, so to speak, and where we're moving towards, where we're all shifting towards is live like the fifth dimensional beings in Telos. They live with their higher selves completely embodied, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're going to be doing. That's what we're moving towards. Right. That's the direction we're going. And so these things are going to be starting to be presented to us like this Christ consciousness device. It's like, hey, start bringing more in. And we do it ourselves, right? We do it ourselves by bringing in higher self and opening up our heart by opening up that divine spark and the threefold flame. But when you go and use these devices, it's like, it's almost like a level up. Like you're like, dunk, ooh, I got a little bit more of my higher self.
Jump. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. A little jump where you're like, oh, there's a little bit more. I feel a little bit more centered now. I feel a little bit more like just a tad bit more in there, because when I'm with those, and you guys all know that, because when you're with your guides and when you're with these other beings, you can feel that light. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're doing. That's where we're going. That's what we're learning to do. Yeah. By bringing in. Eventually, we won't have to say, "Open up my crown chakra and bring in my higher self." Mm-hmm. Eventually, it'll just be like,
it's just how we exist. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I am. It's just really powerful. Thank you for sharing everything that you're sharing, because I'm trying to think okay, what are we going to talk about next, but I can't. I'm just totally absorbing everything that you're saying and shutting off that part of my brain because it's really beautiful. Okay.
If you come up to Northern California, you should really force yourself to go up there.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen. I'm waiting for the right time, but that will happen. Yeah, I can feel it. And, okay, so it's two different directions that I'm feeling pulled, so you let me know which way you'd like to go. One being maybe still talking more about Telos, And then the other, maybe helping us understand how can women step into their priestesshood? Because I believe a modern priestess initiates herself into her work. I don't think, as we were talking about before we started recording, I have a deep connection to mystery schools, to formal rituals and ceremonies, and Green Tara, and this very structured way of doing things. However, I don't think that we need someone else to initiate us. That comes from within our I am presence to decide I'm going to step into this, what I call a priestesshood. So there's so much I want to talk to you about, but those two things are really kind of jumping out at me as things that you clearly have some mastery in. So I would love for you to let me know, where do you want to go?
Well, in regards to stepping into your priestesshood, I feel like I'm still doing that.
Sure. Oh, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like I also feel like you don't really have a choice. Yeah. So I think we come down here prepared to wake up around this time, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, you have a very strong, powerful background and many, many lifetimes with Mary Magdalene in Egypt, with Isis, with Hathor, like you are really deeply into that lineage. You've got that in your DNA. I mean, that's what you're going to be doing. And so each of us came in with that spark of like, okay, once that spark is ignited, you start initiating into whatever it is. Yeah. And so how you go about doing that is individual. It's like, I'm going to do it a little bit different than somebody else is going to do it, and mine's going to look different than somebody else. The only thing I can say is that once it's sparked, you can't go back, right? So once it's sparked, it's like you're just going.
You can't go back to not remembering.
Right. You can't go back to the fact that like you used to have a 9-to-5 job making tons of money and like everything was safe and secure. That's going to happen. Like that happens, and that will happen as you become the amazing priest, queen, mermaid, dolphin, whatever you're supposed to be on this planet. Right. It's all going to be given to you. So being initiated into whatever it is that you're here to do, it's going to happen. No matter what you do, it's going to happen. It's happening. So we all have our own individual styles and ways of it happening. It's just connecting to people like you and other Kayas and all these other women that are doing it and showing people the way. Like this is how I've done it. This is what it looked like to me. And there's no wrong way of doing it. There's no wrong way of stepping into the glorious beings that we're here to do. And you know what else? I'm sure I already know you know this, but that it's like you're now being directed and guided by feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's what's being told to me through my senses as opposed to
and sensations and mm-hmm.
And that's where you move. It's like, and you don't think anymore.
Right.
You don't question.
This has become an I am statement that I need to remind myself is that I am sensation. I am, that's what, that's part of the tools, right, is the sensation of following or not. So that sensation part, that's a tool. That is a tool of humanity that we really do need to start accepting, and it's okay. Yeah. Right? It's okay to feel your feelings, and it's okay to like really, to feel your feelings and to be directed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's where your answers come. Mm-hmm. It's like, when I'm walking around my room and I'm like, if I'm all of a sudden thinking randomly, oh, this crystal wants to go into my bedroom, I just pick up the crystal and move it into my bedroom.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not thinking anymore. Like, why does that crystal want to go into my bedroom? I don't know I'm not going to move that crystal into my bedroom. That's a huge crystal. It doesn't need, like, all those thoughts.
Yeah.
It's like.
I did it right before our call. I dropped a piece of crystal in my water. He's like, I want to be in there. Okay, plop. Yeah. And it's just like, I love that you use that example. I find myself doing that all the time now. Just listening. Yeah.
I guess, and you don't question it anymore. No questioning. You're just like, that's weird. All right, I'm just going to do that then. And it's the same with the decisions in your life about your career and your job and what's next. And it's like, don't question. Okay, I'm being told to go to Mount Shasta by November 1st. I have no idea how that's going to happen. I don't even know how I'm going to make money. I don't know any of that. It's like, okay. It's like, that's that back to that effortless, but still putting effort into your life, but it's just effortless. It's like, okay.
Well, and that aspect of surrender that you have now, where you've said, okay, I surrender, guide me, and you're not going to get the whole plan all at once, like the business plan, the house, all of the details that you might need, but it's beautiful that you're practicing that surrender piece, and with that comes the just sometimes not having.
Well, and it just popped into my head. That's exactly what you're doing right now. Like this.
Yeah, it is.
Is exactly what we're talking about. You're here right now doing these videos, not because you thought in your head, let me think about what I want to do next. It was like this came to you, and it was like, this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
Here I go. I have no idea what it means, what's gonna happen, why.
Right.
Just like, okay, this is next. And that's how we're living now. That's like, that's how it's moving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Something that I thought of when you were speaking was, I think it's important for anybody who's listening to figure out where their fifth dimensional, I want to call them families, are. I feel so seen that you mentioned my connection to Isis and Hathor and Mary Magdalene very much feel seen, and you reflecting that to me. And I can see that same connection with you, with Telos and Lemuria, and that whole magic around that lineage. So I think it can be really helpful to know who your support, like who do you connect with in a very supportive way. So I think what I'm trying to get at is, do you have advice for women who are starting to remember, like, how do you, and I need to think about my answer to this question, but how do you find that, I'm going to just call them fifth dimensional families?
It's such a good question, because I've actually never thought about it, because it just came to me, right? Like, I'm sure it just kind of came to you. It just sort of comes, right? So, like,
I'm trying to remember too. I'm also trying. I'm like, wait, how did I
know?
Yeah,
I remember. No, it's almost like, how do you know your name is what your name is? It's like it's just who you are. But there are women and men that are waking up and are sort of like, what's going on? Who am I connected to? There was a woman the other day that was like, I know I'm a star. I know I have a star family. Who's my star family? Well, if I connected to her higher self, I would be able to send that in, I would be able to connect to that information, which brings me back. This is totally off subject, but the more people connect to their higher selves, the more they'll be given every single piece of information, right?
That's true.
But so for the person that's just sort of like, oh, I want to feel that, like, what's my lineages? Who am I connected to? I mean, it's not going to necessarily be the answer they want to hear, but if you just sit and listen, whatever that is that pops up, that's it. Like, what's coming up into your conscious? What are you seeing? What ascended master are you visualizing? Like, who are you hearing?
Or parts of the world, or there can be a lot of ways to kind of
like how we're going back to the senses, right? Like
sensation.
is it that you're hearing? Like when you close your eyes at night, are you, like, when you're walking around, is somebody popping into your head? Like being very conscious of your senses and like, oh, this is the third time in a row that I've heard of Saint Germain pop in. Okay, well, let me start thinking about, thinking about Saint Germain. What does that mean? Like, because as you know, none of us came from Earth, right? So we all came from other star systems. Mm-hmm. And even if you came from Lemuria or Atlantis, you came from another star system.
Right.
So learning to start to feel what's around us. What energy do we feel around us? Because when I do my higher self transmissions with my clients, no matter what, without a doubt, it's like, oh, your star family. There's like 7 of them all around you, and they're usually at night. And it's like, we all have that. We all have these beings. Aside from our guides, we have our star family shining like right into our heart, like super connected, like it's like we're connected to a source, but we're also connected to our star families that we left to come here to well, and you're so powerful. You are like, I mean, you've got a very big mission. Like you've got a big mission, and you've got so many of these powerful women around you. Oh my, it's crazy. I'm like, holy shit, I got goosebumps all over my whole body right now. I'm like, whoa, holy Moses. Talk about, I'm like almost tearing up because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. I must be connecting to something with you right now. But like, yeah, like there's just woman after woman, like right to your heart, right? So, and I know you feel that. So that's how you know where your thing is. So all I would say for other people is like, just start feeling and don't question. Coming back to that, don't questioning, just feel what it is, what's popping in, what are you feeling? And then sometimes working with people that can help you, like, oh, I'm seeing this around you, or I'm seeing this, and then it's like, oh yeah, that feels
that
right.
connects to this thing. Yeah, you can start connecting dots that way.
Yeah, like, oh, that feels right. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Or like, because once someone says it, you're like, oh yeah, that's right.
You remember.
Yeah. That's right. Of course.
Oh.
Like I consciously didn't realize I was going to be working with the beings inside of Telos until I remembered. And then it was like, oh my God, yes, I remember.
Yeah, it's that moment of like, oh, right. Yes, this is what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know, and I have a girlfriend that's struggling with what is that remembering? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I completely honor and like just give so much love to the people that are still just trying to figure it out.
Oh yeah, this is great. I wish I could like spin my laptop to the version of me like a few years ago and and have her you know what I mean? It's like, this I hear you. I feel
like we're like in the flow, but like there are so many women that are going to be like, how do I get there? Like, how do I feel that? Who am I? Who am I? What am I? Like, you're here for something big, but what is that? And that's so real for so many people.
It is, and it comes with, especially those of us who are here right now, this sense of urgency and this sense of like, if I'm not doing it, I'm mad. And I don't even know what that thing is, but I'm not doing it, and I'm pissed that I'm not doing it. And so that can like put you in I went through that where I was just angry that I didn't know yet, and I was throwing a fit. I was, like that's what my mind was, just throwing like a tantrum that because I wasn't nourishing my heart. My mind was so busy, there wasn't any room for those heart thoughts to like actually have my mind wrap them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
When you went into your heart, when did it click? When were you like, oh yeah, this is When did you start feeling like you got it?
Yeah, well, there's been a few times for me. There's been, there's been like before I really had my awakening happened at like a rock bottom on the bathroom floor kind of surrender, right? And then like you build up from there, and then there's another kind of surrender. And so I feel like it's been this gradual thing of like, okay, I surrender. And then more would rush into my heart. I would open, and then there would be room for things to come into my heart, and it would be simple. It was very human. Like, it was like, okay, drink juice in the morning, have tea, herbal tea at night. That, so it's like all these really everyday things and then there just came a moment where I think the fear softens. And then when the fear softens, you start making decisions that freaks your ego out, but you know the ego's freaking out and you're just dealing with that, but your actions are coming from here. So it's like, I'm aware my ego's freaking out. I'm aware of that. I'm feeling those feelings, but like, I'm going to do this instead. And all of a sudden there's a tipping point where you kind of go from that, the fear just doesn't have all the weight, and the heart does. And when that tipping point happened for me, I redid the website. I canceled a business mastermind I was going to do. I pulled the plug on a ton of stuff that made me, a version of me even a few months ago would have had a panic attack. But I just decided, I was like, you know what? My sensation, my feeling, my heart says no. So I can't, I've got work to do. That's not aligned with it. And so it's almost just like this slow tip. And then all of a sudden it's like the heart leads first.
Yes.
But it takes a lot of work, right? To get like all the way to that tipping point. There's like a lot of steps, gradual steps that happen, which I've been sprinting through like the last 2 years. I was really determined to try to figure out how to get to that tipping point. And that comes with many initiations and so.
That's such a good description. And what I was hearing as you were talking is, we've just begun.
Oh, it just tipped.
You know what I mean?
We got like a lot more. We're just like, this is just like, the tipping point. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, wait till we watch this like 2 years from now. We're like, like.
Oh yeah, that's going to be so sweet. Oh, my future self is just going to look at this and be like, oh, so cute. So.
They were so cute back then.
So cute. Oh, that's really wonderful.
It's so awesome.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you for being here. Okay, so how can these listeners and viewers, everybody's part of this project, if they want to connect with you more and work with you, how can they go about doing that?
My website, LorieofLemuria.com.
Okay.
I'm moving around some of my offerings, and I'm going to offer, oh my gosh, I just got this download 2 days ago. I'm going to start offering immersives, individual immersives in Mount Shasta.
Awesome.
I'm so excited about it. Oh my gosh. Just LorieofLemuria.com, and then on Instagram at Lorie of Lemuria.
Great. Oh, Thank you so much for sharing all your medicine and energy today. This is great. I'm so excited to get this video out there.
I just can't wait until, you're just amazing. You're just, I'm just so grateful that you listen to your heart and you're doing this and you're not questioning and you're just going with it. And like the most amazing things are going to come from this.
Thank you.
So awesome.
Oh, well, I'm happy you're along for the ride.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.